The initial question that I would like to ask you is, have you heard or know what is problem-based teaching? Would anybody like to volunteer whatever answer that they have? It doesn't matter, just please see what you can give me. Can everybody hear me clearly? I can't hear anybody speaking.
We can hear you.
Ah, great. That's fantastic. You are alive. Very good. Okay, so just to introduce, what do you know about problem-based learning? What have you come across or read or heard so far in your career? Okay, that's fine. We can move on. And simply put, this was the easiest or the most clearest description that I came across. So what is a PBL? Well, let me read for you. Problem-based learning is a student-centered approach in which students learn about a subject by working in groups to solve an open-ended problem. This problem is what drives the motivation and the learning of the student to complete the task. Yeah. This is also known in certain regions or territories or countries as inquiry-based learning. Wherever you hear either of these, it is exactly the same. Okay, so this is how this is a new or different way of teaching, which is very different to the way I learned when I was at school. Let me explain a little bit further. Okay, so when I was at school, and no doubt most of you, this is the way that we normally learned. We learned a traditional method. The traditional method was we are told what we need to know. We are shown how to do something. Then we have to memorize it, okay? And then the problem assigned to illustrate how to use it. So this was the way of working out that we did in our education days. However, there is a very big difference between this and problem-based learning, PBL, which is that we actually assign the problem to the student first, okay? And then they have to find their way of working out how to address all the problems in order to deal with the solution, okay? So they have to work towards identifying what they need to know in order to fix the problem, okay? And so by that, in so doing, they learn and apply it and solve the problem. So they're actually doing most of the work in order to create the learning curve that the students need in order to get from A to B. As we will go through this, you will understand more. But one of the things that we normally come across as teachers is the student wondering why they have to learn this, why they have to learn that. What we do is we turn it on its head. We give them the focus of the problem first to grab their imagination and their level of inquiry. And then they are more motivated to learn to fix the problem. Now, because they are working in groups, they have to work in like maybe how we would say is like a hive of bees. Some of them will be doing these tasks, some will be doing others, but they are all working towards a common goal, okay? So this is what they call traditional versus problem-based learning. And this is the essence of the differences, okay? Any questions so far? Okay, sorry, my my earbuds fell out. I have very small ears. I'm sorry, I cannot help it. Okay, so now moving on, there is a certain cycle of changes which will occur in order for the students to work towards the problem, fixing the problems as they go, and coming up with a solution. And this is essentially the cycle that they will go in. we give them the problem, or the teacher assigns the problem from the outset. Yeah. Then they will move into an area of idea. Yeah. Which ideas come to mind? Everybody will be brainstorming, if you like, at the beginning to find out how to fix the problem. So a lot of mistakes will be made in this area, but at the same time, they are equally increasing their knowledge. Okay, because each time they discuss an idea, maybe one or two of them might come up with a better idea. And so this idea now supersedes the original idea. So now they have gained more knowledge, or they have gone off to do the research, found out where there could be potential problems, and then they have returned to the hive to share the information. This increases the knowledge. Then as they go through the knowledge thing, they may well return to the idea section in smaller quantities, but eventually they will reach the learning issues. Okay, so now they are progressing further into the problem, which then they will refine, discuss between them each and every time they have a meeting or a discussion or a session. They will then discover new ideas during this part of the process. From there, they then will work out the course of their actions to move the project forwards. Okay, and in so doing, moving it forwards, they then discover there may well be other problems that they now discovered from the original. So as they keep going, they will probably go in another cycle. And this is not unusual. They do this by happenstance. It naturally occurs. They go back to the problem, but now the problem, they have got rid of the initial problems. Now they are facing another little set of problems. And so they continue with this cycle. Okay, so problem, ideas, knowledge, learning, issues, course of action, back to the problem. Each time they are doing it, they are moving higher and higher up the levels towards the final goal. Okay, so that is how they discuss that. And this is the cycle that everybody talks about. Okay, now moving on from there, the first question that should be coming to your mind is, what should I do as a teacher in order to promote these changes and to get the students into the right frame of mind? There is actually a clear balance here. You can see the flow chart of how we get to these stages. So the first thing as a teacher that you need to do, you need to establish the learning outcomes. Where are they heading? What do you want them to be able to have learned by the end of the project? Yeah. So you need to decide what skills they are going to develop. So this is what you must create from outset. From there, once you know what learning outcomes you wish the students to have, your next role is to assign the students' roles. Who is going to be the manager, who everybody refers to during the course of the skills? Okay, who is going to be maybe the mechanic? Who is going to be the technician? So you basically must assign tasks to the students. You can do it directly yourself if you know them well enough and you know where they may have shortcomings or they have a certain high level of skills. So you can apply which student will do which tasks. Okay, so this is where your understanding of the students comes in very well. Okay, from there, the next part of it is obviously to motivate the students. Yeah, okay, and so these students, you can motivate them in a number of ways. Okay, the main part is them becoming more thoughtful and providing ideas to them to jog their minds, to spark their inquiry. Okay, in England we say to fire you up, yeah, for the road ahead with what you are going to do. So this is you know, once you have done this, once you have assigned the student roles, whose roles they are doing, then you motivate them. Thoughtful and innovative ideas or strategies, you could say, to sustain their inquiry. You need to spark inquiry. This is where your skills will come in, as well as overviewing the students, which we will talk about in a minute. Okay, from there, we then go to creating a strategy document. Yeah, so which skills, which students will make decisions and what tools do they need? They need to be asked this question. What tools do they need in order to best accomplish the task? So you ask them, let them start to think about it themselves. As you know, the whole point of this is to get them motivated and thinking. By asking the correct questions, yeah, then it will spark them into finding out answers, asking the right questions and finding out what tools are best to support the task that they are going to do for the manager, for the technician, for the engineer, etc. Okay, so in a way I can come back to some different ideas on how best to find locations on the internet where you can interface with the students and get them to increase the strategy document, because the document doesn't stay still. It will change as well with everything else we are doing. Okay, then after this, we develop the educational activities. Okay, so the best way to do that is for the teacher to ask steering questions, we call it. Questions to steer them in the right direction, because we don't want to give them the answers. We always want them to find the answer, okay? So give them steering questions when you think they need to be realigned with the common goal. If you see them going off too far, you can bring them back on course, okay? This is one of the best solutions, okay? Now, normally you will do this at the beginning of meetings, or you will do it at pre-designed points during the phases, okay? You must have regular contact with the students to discuss what they have done so far, what they haven't done, where they have found problems, and what ideas did they come up to try and fix the problems. You see, you are always putting it back to them, yeah, to keep them engaged. Okay, now there's more I can discuss on that, but I will come back to that later. Then we will present the solution to the problem, which will obviously would be the final point. Okay, so don't worry, I will give you these details later on. So don't worry if it's not quite straight in your mind yet, but I will help you along. So now we have done this situation up to this point. What I want to do is to come back a bit and let's see for ourselves, perhaps this question. Now, if I was to ask anybody in the audience tonight, what possible answers could you maybe provide? I can hear somebody breathing. Is that Abdullah San?
No, it's not me.
Ah, okay. So does anybody have any basic ideas what some of the benefits of project-based learning could be to the group and to the individuals? Let me put it to you like this to give you a better format of understanding. Okay, so let me show you some of these. Okay, so the first part, there's two parts to this. The first part is a problem-based task. It's a unique venture involving uncertainties. This is what promotes the thinking, the motivation, and sparks curiosity, is trying to solve all these uncertainties that they will discover during the project. This is the word that we use to encapsulate where the students are embedded. So uncertainties is the word we use, okay? Which are to be managed during the execution because they are facing problems all the time with it. And so therefore they have to keep working together individually and as a team with the overview of the teacher in order to remove these uncertainties and move further forwards, okay? Now, the second part is problem-based learning is capable to meet the challenges of preparing students in solving real-world problems, rather than essay and exam-based traditional classroom learning, which is where I came from. Yeah, you have to remember that back in the when education was, spread out, not from just the elite, but widespread, was the time of maybe the late 1700s, when we had industry began, such as steam and railways and factories. They needed to educate the employees in basic arithmetic and learning in order for them to be able to conduct their job efficiently. So they had to do basic education. And so this is where our education originally stemmed from, is that industrial era where we had to sort of learn these items. And this is why we were told parrot fashion, A plus B, etc. Okay, so that is the old way, and obviously this new way is giving them the challenge instead of exam and essay writing in classroom learning traditionally. We now change it completely for the 21st century. Give them the problem first, let them find the answer themselves. We give them support and give them leading ideas, but we don't do the work for them. Okay, that is the essence in the benefits. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that this problem solving ability is what they did a survey with the top 200 companies in the world. And what they asked them is, what do you most want from your graduates? Okay, that was the question. The answer that came back was that they want their new graduates to possess is the problem solving ability, not only with themselves, but in tandem with a team or a group or a unit. So that was the main or the biggest information that came back. That was the best answer. So you can see, this is what the companies are looking for. And so if we can embed this into the students at this stage, then hopefully they will be on par with other students from different places, or maybe slightly ahead, which would be the ideal. Okay, so big companies like General Electric, GlaxoSmithKline, pharmaceutical, engineering, and of course, oil, Aramco. These are just some of the companies that replied and gave their answer. So we know there is a lot of benefit if we can steer the students into this as early as we can and as best we can. Okay. Any questions? Any thing you want to expand on, or is that fairly straightforward? Okay, I heard a no. Okay, so here is the big question. Because one of the things that we have to contend with the students is this. They always like to know, why is it necessary to do something? If you are a parent, you will easily understand this. It's always why? Sometimes they cannot see the wood for the trees, as is the saying. So they don't know why it's necessary to learn. So it's beneficial to give them the means to understand. This is good. This is the best way to deal with this, is at the very beginning of the project. Don't leave it to halfway or 3/4 or whatever to hear these kind of questions from the students. If you have done this, then I would ask you to reconsider your strategy for introducing, because at this point it is too late. Yeah, you need to deal with it at the very beginning. Ask them what they want to know and why. Get all of the answers off the table. Yeah, So in any case, does anybody have any ideas? Why would we use PBL in order to increase the benefits to the student? What would you say?
I would say that it's necessary because it's student-centered oriented and it leads students to be productive in solving problems. So there's a lot of positivity in doing so.
That's a very good answer. Would anybody else like to add anything to this? Or if you would like to share maybe some insight that has come to you during the class, what would you like to say? Okay, so that was a very good answer from the teacher just now. What I would like to do is show you what are the benefits of teaching in this manner. There are a few. I will go through it slowly and obviously expand on each one because there's some details that would be helpful to you, I'm sure. Okay, so the first one is working in teams, which obviously when they are working for BP or some big company, everybody works in teams and units, yeah? Therefore, it is an inclusive task that they are undertaking together, and working together in this way brings harmony between them. They share the load of the work, and obviously if they don't know something, they can refer to a different person within the team. Another benefit of this is that, for example, in the school environment, the stronger student working in the team with the weaker student, what normally happens is it's preferential to get them to work together. The other benefit is that when you work like this, the weaker student will ask more questions. Maybe he's embarrassed to talk about elsewhere. With the student who is stronger than him, he is happy to help the weaker student because he wants to bring him up and make him a better student. So the two work very well together. One is giving support and feeling better for helping him. The other one is gaining insights that he otherwise may not talk about. And so the two of them grow together as in terms of the strong student is learning management skills and the weaker student is getting extra insights, but the main thing he's getting is confidence. He's building his confidence levels without exposing himself publicly. This is where there is a dramatic gain, okay? The next one is managing projects and holding leadership roles. This rolls on from what I've just said. So the stronger, it may not be the stronger. In certain situations, the weaker student at the beginning has moved up so high during his phases that he actually becomes confident enough to run a small unit or lead a small team, okay? But at the beginning, no one was to know that. These are one of the inherent advantages in having a team scenario like this or group-based project, okay? So they get, also they learn how to manage the project themselves. So when they eventually go to a big company like Sony or Panasonic, it is already in their system how to operate and how to react and to deal with people. Their independency skills become better as a result because they understand by listening how people are talking to them, what help they can provide, what hints they can give them or ideas to push them along. Exactly what the teacher was doing to them at the beginning. Inherently, you will be good, the students will take it on themselves, okay? Now, again, oral and written communication always improves when they are working together because they are pointing out problems to each other, giving different signals while they are speaking, and also refining problems. So the oral and written communication equally moves on in leaps and bounds because they are all at the same, they are all moving upwards as a unit. Okay, then we get self-awareness benefits. Okay, people maybe they are in their shell at the beginning, but as time goes on, they increase their productivity within the group. Okay, that means they are getting more self-aware. What normally happens is when they notice this with other students, they immediately notice it because they were like this in the beginning. And so they will practically try to help the person who has the same idiosyncrasy as them. Okay. The evaluation of the group processes always happens because when they meet, when they talk, when they have a discussion, when they have a Skype meeting, whatever it is, or Zoom, they are all actively talking to each other and working out what problems we are at presently, which ones we have to fix, and which ones need further attention. Okay, now in tandem with this, you could say working independently. In some cases, certain people will have to undertake certain things and undertake the responsibility for that. If you have increased confidence and you have a level of skill commensurate with your confidence, then it stands to reason that you will improve. Oh, sorry, I lost my point. Okay, yes, independently. We all have to do it at some stage. All of us at the beginning were learner teachers. Yeah, we were sweating in the class. We were very nervous. We weren't sure quite how to operate. And so it was a learning curve we all had to do. The way I call it, it was like a baptism of fire. But here we are, nevertheless. Here we are now in Saudi. Okay, so we have to work independently. You can't always work in a group. Some things you have to just learn by yourself. This is something that will be inferred to the students because invariably they will have to do some of the tasks without reference to somebody else. Okay, now getting on from there, as to be expected, critical thinking and analysis is also self-based because you are continually looking at your performance, what you have to do, and how best you can go about doing something in order to report back to the hive, okay? Or in the group-based, which is normally when you have meetings together, and then obviously you talk about progress to date, what is the next target, and how long before you, what target or date you are going to apply in order to fix the next problem. Okay, explaining concepts, that goes in hand. Everybody, if you don't understand it, how can you explain it to another human? So by definition, if you can explain something clearly to somebody outside your body, therefore you understand implicitly what it means. This is another aspect of learning. You can't explain something to somebody if you don't know it yourself. Okay, this in part leads to the self-directed learning. Okay, so once they get to a certain mass, then they start to take on learning things of their own accord, going off and doing the research, finding out about something, speaking to somebody else that they can gain some insight. This is all what we call self-directed learning. Okay, the other ones are applying the course content to real world examples. Of course, this was the whole point of the exercise. They have to have a real life example. They are not doing it just in a small confined experiment. They are doing it with some real world usability. This is what students like to hear. What is it I'm learning now that I can apply in some way in my future? This is where the gain is in their mind. It is like, as we say, an intrinsic value, for those of you that know what that means. Yeah, intrinsic is something that internally you are interested in doing, finding out, or learning. It's like self-ignition. Okay. Okay, so let's tie up these. Of course, applying the course content to real world examples we have done. Researching information and literacy, that is also what I've just explained with going off-piste, if you like, to discover new or find out something you don't know. Problem solving across all disciplines, of course, and imagine all these skills in a graduate for a new employer. This is the heart of what we are all talking about today. This is the sentence that encapsulates all of this. Imagine all these skills in a graduate for a new employer. Imagine that, if they have these skills in place before they go through the door of the office. So this is the great focus for us as teachers, is to try and embed as much of this as possible into the student before they turn up at the office. So this is, I had to explain a little bit more about this. Hopefully you won't hear too much talking from me completely, but this part I thought was very important to highlight what the positives are and in which possible ways to give you the full idea. Okay, any questions at this point, or you are very happy? Jolly good. Okay, so now the part that then follows what we have just discussed is what stages. We have discussed the aspects, but now we want to know what are the stages in PBL that the students will experience. Okay, we are not in there with them. So I thought what I will do is explain it to you, what the general cycle of changes or thought patterns that will occur within the student's mind. So I've written it out here and I want to share it with you now. Okay, so I broke it into 3 pieces. So please follow me now. In problem-based learning, students undergo various stages of problem solving. Through structure of the project, they must have structure, okay, which must be explained to them from the outset, okay? Now, this project includes various stages. Now, these are along the lines of project scoping. Yeah, initially, what is the project? Does it have an open-ended conclusion for them to discover themselves? Then work planning. How are they going to assign the work to the relevant workers or management team or unit? Okay. Then activity performing. What are they going to do individually and collectively? And how are they going to track their progress from one meeting to the next, or from each stage A to B to C, if they have done it in this fashion? Okay, at the end of the day, they must decide how they want to run the project. You are just there to orchestrate if there is anything you can do to improve the process, speed up the result, or give them ideas to go and find out something more because maybe they haven't thought it through, which is very possible. They are just learning, okay? Then that's the first part. The second part is to manage uncertainties. This is where all the action is going on. The more uncertainties they can discover, the more they are going to be inclined to want to solve the problem, fix the problem, or change it in order to avoid the problem and move up higher. Okay, so this is where the action really goes on. Okay, solving activities of the project. Then at the end stage would be presentation of the project and then the closure. When they get to the end there, they will be talking about how they found the experience, what problems they found in the experience, what they would have done differently. And this is a good question to ask the student. What would you have done differently now that you know what you have, now you have gotten to the end of the project? What would you have done differently to make it easier, better, or more efficient? This is a great question to ask them individually when they are all sitting together, because then you will get some real answers from them. And also it sets in their mind the process they have gone through in order to get to here. And so the next time you ask them a project, a problem or a task, they will refine what they did in the first to the second. Okay, so there are some explanations. Okay, now the students will, as a matter of course, increase their skills because they have the opportunities to increase their skills of observation and survey. The research they do, the reporting, they come back to the unit to discuss the presentation, the communication, and collaboration with all the people involved in their team. This also promotes team building on a very succinct level and leadership in the end-to-end problem-solving approach of PBL. So everybody wins within the situation, even if the project isn't actually done to the nth degree. The fact of the matter is, the students would have learned a lot of these much more, would have learned it to a much higher level than when they started the project. So in any case, there is improvement. Okay. Okay, now I have, my voice is sufficiently broken from all the conversation I've been doing. What I will do now is I want to encapsulate what I have spoken about in one small cartoon. Okay, so the cartoon runs for 5 minutes, not long, I promise. Okay, also we'll give you a break from listening to me. Okay, so let me play this shorter piece for you, and they will, what is happening here? Oh no, right click. Okay, right click. What is going on? Hello? Ah, okay. This is a cartoon on
Problem-based learning.
Okay, there you go.
5 minutes. I promise. In the 1980s, somebody decided that hair
We
trimming-
can't see the cartoon.
So
Okay, 1
combine
minute.
the hair trimmer and the vacuum.
Okay, I wasn't sure because let me go
They
back.
only hear the audio, but not the actual video.
Okay, let me go back. Can I, okay, can, I wonder if Yusuf can return. Let me go back.
Share your screen.
Beg your pardon?
You need
Oh.
to share your screen.
Clear the screen?
Share the screen of the video that you're showing. Now you're showing this your PowerPoint. You need to
Yes.
go back and show your actual link, your YouTube video link.
What I can't understand is, my understanding is I right click and then open the hyperlink. When I press the right click, I'm only getting this white square. And I've never seen that
Just
before.
left click it, me. Try left click.
Okay.
Cleaner, and we ended up with the Flowbee. And I remember begging my parents for a Flowbee, and they said no because they thought I would use it on the dog, and they were probably right. But the idea there is pretty clear, that you can solve problems in unique ways. And that's the core idea of problem-based learning. Number one, the need for problem-based learning. School exists in a one-size-fits-all factory model where students are expected to passively consume content. But here's the thing, kids aren't widgets, and one-size-fits-all is great for socks, but lousy for minds. Kids need to dream and wonder and imagine. They need to design and build and tinker, and they need to think critically and solve complex problems. For years, the model has involved going to school, being compliant, getting into college, and then climbing the corporate ladder. But the ladder is now a maze, and our students need to know how to navigate the complexity of a global society. In other words, students need to be empowered to solve real world problems. And that's why we have problem-based learning. Number two, the history of problem-based learning. Problem-based learning began at Case Western University in the 1950s, although it wasn't called that at the time. And the goal was to provide real-world problems for medical students to solve. It soon spread to other medical schools and eventually made its way into business, law, engineering, and education. And by the 1960s, you could find elements of problem-based learning within the new social studies framework of Lassialis and Cox, as well as Herbert Thieleman's group investigation model. Problem-based learning fits well within the social family of education because of the emphasis on real-world problems and human systems. It's not surprising that many of the problem-based learning theorists cite John Dewey's notion of democratic education, as well as Paulo Freire's concept of critical pedagogy. In other words, kids need to be engaged with solving problems within their world. And here's the description of problem-based learning. There are 4 different phases. Number one, you present or identify the problem. In some cases, the teacher decides on the problem. In other cases, individual students or the entire classroom community presents the initial problem. Phase number two, they develop a plan for solving the problem. Here, students work collaboratively in this phase where they figure out what they will do in order to solve the problem. In some cases, it's a really small plan of action, but sometimes they might engage in research, brainstorming, and ideation. And in a few cases, they might even decide to build a product. The next phase is the implementation of the plan. In this phase, students test out their plan to see if they can solve the problem. And then finally, they move to the last phase where they evaluate the implementation. Here, students analyze the results and they also reflect on the process. Now, here's the ideal context for problem-based learning. Problem-based learning works best when students solve authentic real-world problems. Math teacher Dan Meyer warns against solving problems that contain pseudo-context, where students solve problems that don't actually reflect the way the world exists. So it's important that the problems feel real to the students. In social studies, students might broker peace in a war simulation. In math, they might determine the most efficient route for a trip. In language arts, they might figure out if a novel should be adapted into a movie. And in science, they might do a science fair project. But the key idea here is that it is not project-based learning, it's problem-based. And that's because you don't have to design a product. You're simply solving a problem. Ideally, students will solve problems that actually exist in their own world. And here's where the technology comes in. Our devices have a slew of apps that once required additional time and resources. And the problem-based learning provides a model that taps into both the connective and creative capacity of technology so that students can access the tools and the information to solve these real-world problems. So that is basically problem-based learning in less than 5 minutes.
Okay, very good. I told you that would be very quick. Let me just pause this. Okay, so let's now return. Okay, now that was a very concise version, but as you can see, it covered a lot of the bases. Yeah, this area is more redundant now. We don't necessarily need to do this. The main thing is we know that PBL assessments can be short. The ideal is when you come to use it, is maybe up to 3 weeks. Don't give them anything else at the beginning any longer. Or maybe a 5-day one to begin. Start small and build as you go along the semester, okay? Now, generally, just quickly to identify, the students are going to experience these situations, which is, yeah, sorry, is there a question? I heard somebody talk. Okay, so the student, somebody said something again? Okay, so these are the areas that the students generally must touch on during the exercise. Examine and define the problem in the initial stages. Explore what they already know about underlying issues related to it. Then they are going to determine what they need to learn and where they can acquire the information and tools necessary to solve the problem. Evaluate possible ways to solve the problem. And once they have solved the problem, they report their findings. So generally, this is the phase that they will experience. Okay, we have to finish soon, I am told. So what I wanted to do was to explain to you that if there was a very good teacher in America called Nancy Sulla. She is an expert in this field. One of the books she has done is Students Taking Charge Inside the Learner Active Technology Infused Classroom. I will give you details of this later on if you wish. It also shows you step-by-step guidelines on how to create problem-based assignments. Most teachers have the problem at the beginning, how to go about it. This book will really help you to develop your skills from the beginning. Okay, So the other thing now I would say to you is, yes, start with the standards, identify the content at the beginning, skills and concepts you plan to cover in a specified time frame, such as, say, a 3-week period. Think application, apply yourself. When would somebody use this knowledge in the real world? It has to have some relevancy, whatever you are applying to the students. Okay, so think authenticity and relevancy. They are here. This is what I said earlier. Students always want to know why they have to learn something. Authentic assignments show them why. Students are more motivated when they're given work that has a realistic aspect to it. Okay, and that reflects something they might actually have to do in the real world later. Now, just quickly, I just wanted to explain there are inauthentic aspects or applications, and there are authentic. I just wanted to give you one quick example, if that's okay. So for example, this one, inauthentic, this would be something like create a model of an ecosystem and describe the life cycle and food chain relations to it, yeah? The authentic or of greater value in the real world would be something like this. Instead, a local building contractor is planning to bulldoze all of the trees in a nearby copse. Okay, copse is like a small wooded area. Okay, there are some local groups appealing to save the trees. Your job is to identify one type of tree indigenous to the area and design a presentation to convince the contractor to spare the trees based on the impact it will have on the local ecosystem. This is far more authentic for the students to get their teeth into and also to create a really good project. This is what we call an authentic, okay? So think open-endedness is really the end of the day. Something which has no definitive end, yeah? It is an open-ended idea. There could be a variation of any proportion. They won't know until they get there, okay? I think that's pretty much it. But what I would share with you is another example. So I gave a science example and a maths example. The science example is some researchers think we can use certain types of bacteria, okay, to clean up radioactive pollution in water. Not everyone agrees, okay? Have students use the scientific method, evaluate the data on bacteria, and decide how one bacteria or a combination of them would work effectively as a microscopic radioactive pollution eater. Then have the students decide how to present their work. Okay, so that is one option in a real world example. Another one is a maths example for those teachers who are more mathematically inclined. Indoor ski slopes are gaining popularity, such as in Dubai. Have students explore existing indoor slopes and develop a plan of their own. They should use their knowledge of coordinate planes, slopes, lines, and graphing linear equations. They should design 3 unique ski slopes for varying abilities, beginners, intermediate, advanced. Draw them on a graph paper and include the corresponding linear equations. So you can see we can apply it in so many different ways. Once you get your head around it, it will come more naturally to you. Okay. Now, if I was, say, for example, showing the science one to my students to do a project, I would try to encompass it in maybe a cartoon or a graphic picture. The one I came up to discuss microscopic radioactive pollution eaters was this. Yeah. So cheese is the radiation and the mouse is the bacteria. He's eating all of the bacteria. This is graphically, this is very easy to give students the idea in a humorous way of what their target is. Okay. So I think really we can, I can stop here. And if you have any questions, please ask me now. I think this is the right time.
Hey, Krista, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So to make things practical for the students, for example, we should.
You'll have to repeat that, please, because you are breaking up. I know it's something to do with the students, but I don't know anymore. Can you repeat it?
Frozen.
Yes, I can hear you now. Please tell me your question.
Okay. Yeah, my question was, is it practical to give the students the assignment of making their own CV in the case where they go to a job interview?
In any case, it's always a good idea for them to construct a first-class CV. The CV is the letter of introduction of the human. So therefore, it's a great idea for them to apply to ensure that they show themselves in the best possible light. At the end of the day,
Yes.
it could they will send a letter to say congratulations. That would be the ideal situation. You have passed.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to tie that into the fact that their writing has a direct effect on their ability to write their CVs.
Absolutely. And so therefore, that is a good motivation for them. The thing that we are going to put on them is the final aspect, which is them shaking the hand of the student as a graduate, saying, welcome aboard. We look forward to seeing you next week. Once that is the target we want to attain, we can then refer that back to the student, because his motivation is very high. He doesn't want to keep going to a job. You're going to point out to him. And because his CV is poor, he is not getting a job. And all his other friends are getting recruited, and he is left behind. So these are, again, different ways we can attack the student or motivate him to create a better CV in order to create his future job employment.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, great question. Any more?
I have one question.
Yeah, sure. But speak closely to your microphone because you have a lot of static in the background.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Don't change anything.
Okay. I just wanted to know this problem-based learning. How do you apply that to a listening and speaking class?
Okay, in a listening and speaking class, the way that we would apply this is that, because everything in your class is about oral. So unfortunately, you're going to have some other problems to face as a teacher in order to apply this information to the students. Also, in some ways, it might be better because what you can do is organize situations where the students are speaking to each other and collectively as a group that you can hear and listen to as well as an overview in order for you to then give them steering questions to improve their performance or highlight something that they didn't actually focus on up until this point. You want to save time with the students, so you can minimize the time by actually directing leading questions in order for them to find solutions and then obviously move further. So in some respects, it's not difficult. One of the ways you can do it in a good way is using Google Classroom. They have facilities for exactly this kind of situation. Yeah, there is another place. Oh, where is it? Oh yeah, there's another place as well. I think it's called Endo. Let me see what the name of it is exactly. This is, again, a very good place for collaboration, for communication. And again, this works in your favor because now they have to communicate to each other, both in written form and in speaking form. So this will also drive their improvements internally as a student. There is no missed opportunity. The place I would like to refer you to is, yes, Edmodo. So it is EDMODO. It is a very good.
Better write it down.
Huh? What did you say? Okay, this location is a great place to confer, analyze, and discuss points. Again, you can, if you don't know what you are you have to know what you are saying before you say it. So again, this is a very good opportunity for them to develop, because some of the places they will be working, they may not have access to seeing the people in real time. Some situations, one part of the group is in Korea, the other part is in the United States, but they have to work collectively to solve problems. So it's not a bad practice for them to get into this early in the game. There is no downside at the back end when they are physically working for a corporation. Yeah. Also, places like Edmodo is a great place to ignite discussions. Yeah. Now, as a teacher, you may be thinking to yourself now, okay, so what can I do to promote these classes, these situations? Okay, one of the places is a place called Flipgrid, Flipgrid. This is a great place where you can post things. You can also upload videos, put in links, yeah, for the students to identify, check out, research, and then come back with their findings, thoughts, and new applications. Yeah, so all of this can be very useful in this context, especially in the current environment that we are experiencing. This is another way to connect with the students and the students to connect with themselves. And the key of it is it's all communication. There's no downside.
Very much, Christoph.
Yeah, you are very welcome. Anything I can do to improve us, I'm very agreeable to doing that for everybody concerned. We all have different growing stages. We have to start somewhere to get somewhere. And it's good to know that we are all trying collectively to improve our awareness of what is out there, what is usable, and how to go about getting it. So please have a look at Flipgrid, and also Edmodo and Google Classrooms if you haven't already experienced it. These are good stepping stones in order to interact with the students, especially in a listening, speaking way. Okay, it's now just gone 9:15. I think everybody is pretty much finished here. So if everybody is happy, was everybody happy with the presentation today? Was it clear enough?
Very good, Christoph. Very lovely.
Excellent. Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so I wish all your ladies and gentlemen a very good evening. I hope you enjoyed and it was informative. And I look forward to seeing you again anytime soon. Okay, so with that, I bid you a good evening. I forgot. Here is some recommended resources. Please take a screenshot or print screen now for these extra informations that you may find useful in your journey. I've